What you're seeing here, both in North Carolina and California, are climate impacts. What you're seeing here is the threat to people everywhere. And I have to say that after listening to some of the remarks by the president, I'm not sure I'd feel better and more confident about the federal government jumping in and making sure when we see climate disasters like this, we aren't running towards folks, making sure that they can get the safety and security that they need. So my hope is that over time, the president will learn that FEMA is a great agency. It stepped in North Carolina. Everybody is on board to fight the fires in Los Angeles. So before we make any of these issues political, we ought to make sure that we're protecting people and communities first.
Donald Trump's going to touch down in California a little bit later on. We understand that Gavin Newsom will meet him on the tarmac, having been blamed by Donald Trump for these fires. I just wondered if you could speak to the situation involving, we've heard a lot about the valve and the Delta smelt from Donald Trump. Tell us, in your view, why Los Angeles is burning and why these fires have been so hard to fight.
Well, we've seen, as you indicated earlier, we've seen some tremendous wind, 100-mile-an-hour winds. We're seeing a basically 2 months of literally no rain in Southern California. We're seeing challenges that we've never seen before in terms of the drought that's hitting that area, which means it was a tinderbox. It was ready to go. Mm-hmm. And with those fires, it's been carrying it and fueling it consistently and now refueling it again. So we have to recognize that this is, not about pointing fingers. It's about recognizing that in the challenge of climate change, you're going to see these kind of disasters hitting because the weather's not the same anymore. We are talking about impacts that we need to face and respond to and be prepared for.
Well, and that response, in part, is mitigation and adaptation, right? Trying to work with a changing environment so that you can best avoid things like this to the extent that we can brace against Mother Nature, Gina. And I do wonder, as California is facing a lot of criticism, perhaps unwarranted, in some instances, it comes to things like water flow and supply and this valve and the Delta smelt, as Joe has referred to. But are there things California should have been doing from a mitigation aspect that, if we're talking about conditions on aid, maybe should be included in those conditions? How could it be handled better?
Yeah, well, we have seen fires consistently in this area, and I think California does its best to try to respond to this. But look, every community is at risk as a result of climate impacts. So we do have to work together, not pointing at fingers, but figuring out how we can continue to move forward in the face of a president that doesn't acknowledge that climate change exists. So I think it's really important that we move together, that we maintain our relationship with the international community, even though that the Paris Agreement has now been avoided again by President Trump. We are working with Mike Bloomberg and others to make sure that we still maintain a vital role internationally. But we also have to recognize that governors and mayors and business leaders and institutions all have to step up now. They know the challenges they're facing, and we have to make sure that we continue to invest in our communities in a way that's moving forward with clean energy and not making the climate worse by continuing to advance oil and gas, which is ultimately the main reason why we are having the climate challenges we're seeing today.
Gina, I want to ask you about some of the things that we've seen take place this week since Donald Trump took office. We saw a flurry of executive actions starting, of course, on day one, as he promised. I'm looking at one of them right now called Unleashing American Energy. It's dated the 20th of January. This executive order disbands the interagency working group on the social cost of greenhouse gases that Joe Biden helped to establish in 2021. It excludes the work of this group as well to this point from government policy. What do you make of the reversals of some of the work that you were involved in the Biden administration, and what will be the impact?
Well, I think one of the most important things to remember, and it's pretty clear that they're trying to reduce the impact of any of the efforts underway to address climate change and to move towards clean energy. But what's, I think, important for the American public to understand is that we have 750 plus clean energy projects moving forward in the United States now. We have already moved forward with 400,000 new clean energy jobs. The American people want clean energy. It's saving them money. It's keeping their air cleaner. It's keeping them safe and more secure. And remember, half of those projects are in Republican districts. So now we have Republican congressmen standing up saying, we don't want to dismantle all of the work that's been done before. So it's really important for us to remember, rather than continuing to fight about everything, let's look at what is already in our hands. The 84% of money that's already gone to cities and states, and our great America is All In colleagues, governors and mayors, who are going to stand up and talk about the real things happening in the world and how we can continue to move forward on clean energy. Because that's the challenge that Donald Trump faces. Fossil fuels are expensive, clean energy is cheap. That's what the American people need to know and understand, so we can begin to get over the hump and work together to move forward to make our country work the way it's supposed to.